Before I can start finishing this, I have to very thoroughly and very evenly sand it. And I'm going to be doing that with the random orbit sander. I've got it right here. And in it, I have a 220 grit sanding disc. And I'm going to go over just two parts of this cabinet. It's going to be the end panel here and the front of the face frame. But I do have one thing I need to do before I do any of that, and that's to slightly round over this front corner here, because the vanity top, which is the sink, is rounded on the corner, and this has to match. Thing to watch for when you're sanding plywood like this is not to be too aggressive. You need to make it smooth, but you definitely don't want to burn through the veneer. All right, I finished up with the side and I'm happy with how smooth that is. Now I've flipped the cabinet down onto its back and I'm going to sand the face frame. And what I'm looking to do here is to level up the joints and to make the entire surface nice and smooth. All the sanding is done. I've checked it over and made sure that I didn't miss any areas, because once the stain goes on, there's really no going back. You can sand it again, don't get me wrong, but you have to really wait until the next day, and then you have to try to sand through the stain and it gums up the paper and all that. I'm going to start on the face frame here. And then I'm going to do the panel. I also need to do inside here as well. Like I said, there's going to be drawers in this cabinet, so it really doesn't matter what it actually looks like on the inside, as long as what you see when you look in around the drawers is the same color that's on the face. Now I'm just going to wipe this on. I'm not going to wipe it off with another cloth. If you are careful when you're wiping it on, or reasonably careful, you don't have to worry about lap marks or anything like that. Just put on just enough to be absorbed into the wood without it sitting on the surface too much. And I find that to be the most even look for this kind of stain anyway. So this is where the careful sanding pays off. These sheets came from, the big box place, and they get kicked around and scratched up. So you really have to look for that, because nothing magnifies scratches or blemishes more than a dark stain. Now I'm going to let this dry overnight, and I may stain it again tomorrow with this same stuff if it's not dark enough. I gave the stain overnight to dry. I brought it out here and set it up on my sawhorses here because I'm going to spray it. I was originally going to paint it on with a brush, but I decided that I'll probably get a more even coverage if I spray on several thin coats rather than trying to brush on 2 or 3 thicker coats. So what I have here is the same stuff I used on my floor. It's a tinted polyurethane, and what it'll do is it will darken this up and it'll even out the color a bit, I think. I'm going to try and see how it looks. What I ended up doing here was giving it 4 coats of the color stuff. Because after I got the first coat on, I found that it was drying a little bit too slow, so I put on another one, thinking that I'll speed it up. And then I thought to myself that it just makes more sense to build up the coats to the color I want, and I have it now, and then let that dry, and then sand it, and then give it the clear. And that's what I'm going to do now. I've got some 400 grit paper, and I'm just going to rub it over. Let's take this dry paper towel and wipe off the dust. Alright, I got the gun loaded up with just clear polyurethane this time. And that's to do the top coats. I've already got 2 coats on the side here, and I'm getting ready to put the second coat on the front. After that, I'm going to give it about, I don't know, about a half an hour for that to dry up a bit more. Then I'll give it another couple of coats and I'll call it done. I'll be able to bring it in and install it. Now, I've got to go through the whole process again for the drawer fronts. So what I've done is I've written down the recipe for what I've done on the side here, just in case I forget. I need to lift it up on this end. So I got some shims under there, and I'm a little bit too high now. That down a little bit. That's looking reasonable. And actually, that looks like it's the only adjustment that I need to make before I can permanently attach this to the wall. So right now it's looking pretty level, side to side. I'll check it from front to back, and this looks good. Across here looks good. So I think I'm good. I'm not going to put this in just now because I built this with the idea that I might have to scribe this filler where it meets the wall over here, and also scribe it at the back there a little bit so that it conforms to the wall back there a little bit. Also, if I had to block it up too high here, I would have to scribe this side panel to the floor as well. But I don't see any problems with this. Once it gets screwed in there, I'll be able to put the base on, which goes on the toe kick and around the side here, and that will cover any gap between the cabinet and the floor itself. It's a couple of days later, and I've painted the walls around the vanity, and I've also fixed up the plumbing here, the drain line, so that it lines up with the sink that I have. I've put the vanity back in place and lined it all up, made sure it's level. I've also made marks on here where the screws go. I'm going to put 3 screws in, 2 at the top up here and 1 down at the bottom. And that's basically all I need to hold it in. But I'm also going to take blocks here and actually glue them down on the inside so they're up against the back of the toe kick, and that will keep the toe kick from being kicked in after the glue sets. And the glue I'm going to be using, of course, is polyurethane construction adhesive. Here are the blocks I was talking about that'll go in there. I'm just going to squeeze out some glue on the bottom and on the front here and put it in place right here. Push it up tight against the back of the toe kick and down tight to the floor. And this glue sticks very well to ceramic tile or metal or whatever. So that will definitely hold it there. Okay, I got the cabinet installed. Now all I need to do is put the sink in. And to fasten it, I'm just going to use caulking actually. This is acrylic caulking. And I'm just going to run a bead on the top here at the back, or in the inside I mean, and at the back. And along the front here as well. And basically, for this kind of a sink, this is really all that holds it in. Traditionally, you would use silicone, especially clear silicone for this, but I prefer this because, first of all, it's way easier to clean up. I mean, if I get it on the wood, I can just wipe it off with a wet cloth. And overall, it's strong enough to do what it needs to do. I got a piece of tape over the top of that pipe, even though I put water in there to test it and to fill the trap. I like to do that just in case something falls in there. inconveniently. I've cut the drain pipe to the right length here, and then we'll go in, but I need to get this underneath first, of course. It goes up through, and then this drops down into the pipe, which lines up spectacularly. I'm going to be using the same caulking that I used to glue the sink in place, actually, and that's this acrylic stuff here. I'm going to try to lay it in a good smooth bead, and I can tell I don't have enough in there, so I'll go back over it again a little bit. And then I've got a stick here that I'll be able to tool the corner with, but first I'm going to run my finger in there just to push it in, to make sure it's pushed right into the corner. And I'm going to take this and drag out any extra. Now the reason why I'm using this type of caulking rather than silicone again is because this stuff can be painted, and I've got a painted wall here. I'm not having any backsplash like tile. If I was, I would use silicone. This stuff is waterproof once it sets up. It's also, like I say, paintable, and you can clean it once it gets dirty.